The ships came on a Tuesday morning. They appeared without warning, sliding out of the darkness between stars like ghosts made of crystal and light. There were hundreds of them, each one the size of a small city, their surfaces catching the sunlight and throwing rainbow patterns across the clouds below. Within an hour, they had positioned themselves over every major city on Earth. New York, Tokyo, London, Beijing, Mumbai, all of them now lived under the shadow of alien vessels. The people of Earth looked up and felt very small. General Oran stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Victory, and watched the blue planet turn slowly beneath him. He had conquered 17 worlds in his long career. He had brought entire civilizations to their knees. The hegemony stretched across 1,000 star systems, and he was its greatest warrior. This small world would be his 18th conquest. "Begin the broadcast," he ordered, his voice like wind through dead leaves. His communications officer, a young named, activated the universal translator. The message would reach every screen, every radio, every device on the planet below. "People of Earth," Oran began, "I am General Oran of the hegemony. Your world now belongs to us. You have 3 of your planet's rotations to surrender completely. If you do not, we will reduce your cities to ash. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. Prepare to serve." He ended the transmission and turned to his officers. They were tall and thin like him, with long limbs and delicate features. Their skin was pale blue, almost translucent, and their 4 eyes glowed with soft bioluminescence. They were beautiful in the way that ice sculptures were beautiful, cold and perfect and untouchable. "What do we know of these creatures?" Oran asked. Pulled up the data on the main screen. "They call themselves humans, General. They are a young species, barely capable of leaving their own planet. Their weapons are primitive, chemical explosives, simple nuclear devices, nothing that could threaten our shields." "And their physical characteristics?" "Interesting, General. They evolved on a world with unusually strong gravity. Their planet pulls at objects with nearly 10 times the force of ours. As a result, they are dense, compact, muscular in a crude way." Oran made a sound of disgust. "Gravity slaves. They must move through their days like animals dragging stones. How exhausting their existence must be." His officers laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "They will make excellent workers for our mines," one of them said. "Built for carrying heavy loads. It is what they were made for." Oran nodded. This was the way of things. The strong conquered the weak. The advanced ruled the primitive. His people had mastered technology, built ships that could cross galaxies, developed weapons that could crack planets. These humans, trapped on their heavy, miserable world, had developed nothing but muscles. They were beasts of burden waiting to be harnessed. 2 days passed. Earth's governments argued and panicked and sent desperate messages to the fleet, begging for mercy, asking for terms. Oran ignored them all. He had given them 3 days. They would use every moment of that time to understand how hopeless their situation was. On the 3rd day, a single transmission came from the planet's surface. "General Oran, this is Ambassador of the United Earth Council. We request a meeting to discuss terms of surrender. We ask only that you send a representative to meet with us, so that we may end this conflict with honor." Oran smiled. He had heard such requests before. Every conquered world eventually sent such messages. They always hoped to negotiate, to bargain, to somehow escape their fate. It never worked. "I will not send a representative," he replied. "I will come myself. Prepare to receive me." There was silence on the other end. Then, "Our honored general, we will prepare a suitable location." Oran ended the transmission and turned to his officers. "Ready my personal shuttle. I wish to see these gravity slaves with my own eyes before I put them in chains." His officers exchanged glances. "General, is that wise? Their world is heavy. It could be dangerous for you." Oran waved a long, thin hand dismissively. I will wear my ceremonial. It will support my body against their primitive gravity. Besides, what threat could these creatures pose? They cannot even reach their own moon without chemical rockets. They are children playing with fire while we command the stars. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, and General Iran felt the weight begin to press against him. Even inside his, which hummed and whirred as it compensated for the crushing gravity, he could feel it, a constant, terrible pressure pushing down on every part of his body. How did these creatures survive this? How did they live their entire lives with this invisible giant sitting on their chests? The shuttle landed in a large open area surrounded by strange, primitive buildings. Oran saw crowds of humans held back by barriers, watching his arrival with wide eyes. They were shorter than he expected, barely reaching his chest, but they were thick, solid. Their bodies were packed with muscle in a way that seemed almost obscene to his refined sensibilities. Ambassador stepped forward to greet him. She was a small woman with dark hair and steady eyes. She did not bow. "General Iran," she said, "welcome to Earth." He looked down at her with all four of his eyes. "You are smaller than I imagined. Are all your people so compact?" "We come in different sizes," she replied, her voice calm, "as I imagine your people do." "No," he said, "we are all tall, all elegant. We evolved beyond the need for the crude physical strength that your world demands." He gestured at the crowds around them. "Look at them, built like work animals, short, heavy, slow. Your world has made you into beasts." "Said nothing." "I almost pity you," Oran continued. "To live your whole lives crushed beneath this terrible gravity, to struggle for every step, every movement. It must be exhausting just to exist." "We manage," said quietly. Oran laughed. "Yes, I am sure you do. Like oxen manage to pull plows, like mules manage to carry loads. You manage because you were built to serve, and now you will serve the hegemony." He reached into his robes and produced a data crystal. "These are the terms of your surrender. Your people will work in our mines, extracting resources for our empire. You will be fed, housed, and cared for as any good owner cares for their livestock. In return, you will give us everything." Took the crystal, her face showed nothing. "You have 1 day to sign," Oran said, "and then your service begins." He turned and walked back to his shuttle, each step a struggle against the planet's pull. Behind him, the humans watched in silence. They did not look afraid. They looked like they were waiting. Deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, in a bunker built to survive nuclear war, the leaders of Earth gathered around a table covered with papers and screens. President of the United States sat at the head, flanked by generals and scientists from every nation. Ambassador stood before them, the alien data crystal in her hand. "He called us livestock," she said. "He looked at us like we were animals waiting to be broken." General James, a tall man with gray hair and hard eyes, leaned forward. "And our military options?" "None," replied Dr. Sarah, the head of Earth's Emergency Science Council. "We've analyzed their ships. Their shields can absorb anything we throw at them. Nuclear weapons, kinetic impactors, directed energy, nothing even scratches them. They're at least 1,000 years ahead of us technologically." The room fell silent. Outside, they could hear the distant hum of alien ships hovering over the planet, waiting. Then Colonel spoke. He was not related to the president, despite sharing a name. He was a shorter man, broad across the shoulders with forearms like tree trunks. Before joining the military, he had been an Olympic weightlifter, holding records that still stood 20 years later. "Tell me more about them," he said. "Not their ships, them, the aliens themselves." Doctor pulled up a new screen. "They evolved on a world called. It's a small planet with very weak gravity, about 12% of Earth's." 12%, repeated. "So if I weigh 200 pounds here, I would weigh." "About 24 pounds on their world," Doctor confirmed. Their entire species evolved in conditions where a human child could jump 30 feet in the air, where picking up 100 pounds would be like lifting over 800. Was quiet for a moment, then he smiled. It was not a nice smile. "What can you tell me about their physical strength?" he asked. Doctor exchanged glances with her colleagues. Based on their body structure, their bone density, their muscle mass, General Oran is considered one of the strongest alive. At maximum effort, he could probably lift about 40 pounds on his. 40 pounds, repeated. Maybe 50 on a good day. Their greatest athletes, their champion warriors, they've never lifted more than that. They never needed to. On their world, everything is light. The room was very quiet now. Everyone was beginning to understand. "And on Earth," asked, "how much could he lift here?" "About 4 or 5 pounds, maybe less. He's already struggling just to walk, even with his helping him. Earth's gravity is crushing him just by existing." Stood up from the table. He walked to the corner of the room where a fire extinguisher hung on the wall. He lifted it with one hand casually like it weighed nothing. It was a 30-pound cylinder. "This would kill him," said. "He couldn't lift this if his life depended on it." "Not without mechanical assistance," Doctor confirmed. "And even there have limits. They were designed for worlds up to half of Earth's gravity. No one in the hegemony has ever encountered a world as heavy as ours. They literally don't have the equipment for it." President leaned back in his chair. "So their greatest warrior couldn't arm wrestle a human child?" "Essentially, yes. And they think we're the weak ones." "They've never met anything like us, sir. Every species they've conquered came from low-gravity worlds. To them, strong gravity means slow, primitive, stupid. They see our dense muscles and assume we're built for labor, not combat." Set down the fire extinguisher. "They have no idea." Ambassador stepped forward. "We can use this. They want to come down for the surrender ceremony. General Iran's pride won't let him send a representative. He'll want to personally accept our submission. We invite him down, let him walk on our soil without his ship's defenses." "And then what?" General asked. "We fight them, their fleet will glass the planet." "We don't fight them," said. "We show them. We make them understand exactly what they're dealing with. Then we negotiate from a position they never expected." The plan took shape over the next several hours. They would hold the ceremony in an open area, surrounded by regular humans. No soldiers in uniform, no visible weapons, just people. Iran would see a submissive population ready to accept his rule. And then would show him the truth. "I'll need a boulder," said. "Something big, something impressive, maybe 800 pounds. "That's," Doctor started. "That's nothing," interrupted. "For me, it's nothing. But for him, it might as well be a mountain. He won't be able to understand how I'm lifting it. He won't be able to process it. His entire understanding of the universe will break." President nodded slowly. "And if it doesn't work, if he just calls down his fleet?" "Then we're dead anyway," said. "At least this way, we die standing up. We die showing them what humans are made of." The room voted. The plan was approved. That night went to the gym alone. He warmed up with weights that would crush her into paste. He lifted, and he pushed, and he prepared himself for the most important moment in human history. His wife found him there at midnight, curling a 200-pound barbell with one arm. "Are you scared?" she asked. "Terrified," he admitted. "But not of them. I'm scared of failing. I'm scared that I'll lift that boulder and it won't matter, that they'll kill us all anyway." She sat beside him and took his calloused hand in hers. "Then why do it?" Set down the weight and looked at her. "Because someone has to show them. Every world they've conquered, every species they've enslaved, they all thought they were weak because that's what they told them. But they're not weak. They just never knew they were strong." He clenched his fist, feeling the power in his muscles, the strength that Earth's heavy grip had carved into every fiber of his body. "If we show the what humans can do, Word will spread. Every enslaved world will hear about the creatures who lifted mountains with their bare hands. And maybe, just maybe, they'll start to wonder what they could do too. His wife kissed his forehead. Save the world, no pressure. He laughed, but there was steel in his eyes. Tomorrow, everything would change. The morning of the surrender ceremony was cold and gray. Clouds covered the sky like a burial shroud, and a light wind moved through Central Park, stirring the leaves of ancient trees. The grass had been cut short, and a raised platform had been built in the center of a great open field. On that platform sat a simple table, a chair, and the documents of Earth's surrender. Around the field stood thousands of humans. They were not soldiers, there were no uniforms, no weapons. They were ordinary people, teachers, doctors, construction workers, farmers, students. They had been chosen carefully, picked for their quiet strength, their calm faces, their steady eyes. They stood in silence, watching the sky. Ambassador waited at the base of the platform. She wore a simple black suit, and her dark hair was pulled back from her face. Beside her stood Colonel, dressed in plain civilian clothes, a white shirt, dark pants, nothing that suggested his military rank or his purpose here today. He looked like any other man in the crowd. That was the point. At exactly noon, the alien shuttle broke through the clouds. It was beautiful in a terrible way, all smooth curves and glowing light, moving without sound through the air. It descended slowly, deliberately, giving everyone time to appreciate its power and grace. The message was clear: we are so far above you that we can take our time. The shuttle touched down on the grass, and a ramp extended from its side. First came the honor guard, 12 soldiers in gleaming, their movements careful and controlled. Even with mechanical assistance, they struggled against Earth's gravity. They walked like men wading through deep water, each step requiring visible effort. Then came General Iran. He was magnificent and terrifying. His ceremonial armor caught the gray light and turned it into something like frozen fire. His 4 eyes swept across the crowd, taking in the thousands of silent humans, the simple platform, the quiet trees. He stood 9 feet tall, his slender body supported by the most advanced in the fleet. And still he struggled. Could see it in the slight tremor of his legs, the careful way he placed each foot. The servos whined softly as they fought against Earth's pull. Sweat, or something like it, was already forming on his pale blue brow. "Ambassador," he said, his voice slightly strained, "I see you have gathered your people to witness their submission." "We thought it appropriate," replied. "This is a historic moment. They wanted to be here." Oran looked at the crowd again. Something in their silence seemed to bother him. Conquered peoples usually wept or begged or showed their fear in 1,000 small ways. These humans just watched. "They are very quiet," he observed. "We are a patient people, General." He made a dismissive sound and began walking toward the platform. His honor guard flanked him. They're working hard to keep them upright. One of them stumbled slightly, and Oran shot him a look of disgust. "The gravity here is unpleasant," the general said. "How do you bear it every day?" "We were born to it," replied simply. "We don't notice any more." They reached the platform. Oran looked at the steps, only 3 of them, rising perhaps 2 feet total, and hesitated. For stairs were almost unknown. Why climb when everything was light enough to simply step over? He managed the steps slowly, gripping the railing, his straining. By the time he reached the top, his breathing was audibly labored. "Let us finish this quickly," he said. "I find your world increasingly tiresome." Climbed the steps easily, without using the railing, without breaking her stride. She didn't make a show of it, but she didn't hide it either. On the platform, the surrender documents waited. Oran lowered himself into the chair, his adjusting to support his weight. He picked up the stylus, and his hand trembled. The simple writing instrument, weighing perhaps 2 ounces, felt heavy in his grip. Something cold began to form in Oran's stomach, something that might have been doubt. He looked at the crowd again. They were all watching him now, thousands of eyes fixed on his trembling hand. And there was something in those eyes that he didn't recognize at first. It wasn't fear. It wasn't submission. It was anticipation. "Before we proceed," said, "there is a tradition among our people. When two parties come together for an important agreement, there is an exchange, a show of strength, a demonstration of what each side brings to the table." Oran's antenna twitched with irritation. "We have demonstrated our strength. Our fleet surrounds your world." "Yes," agreed. "Your ships are very impressive, but we would like to show you what humans can offer in return, what we are capable of." "You have nothing we want except labor," Oran sneered. "What could you possibly show me?" Smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but something about it made Oran's hearts beat faster. She called. From the crowd stepped Colonel. He walked easily, smoothly, his movements relaxed and confident. He climbed the platform steps without touching the railing, two at a time, as if the gravity that crushed Oran was simply not there. "This is one of our people," said. "He would like to show you something." Nodded to the general. Then he turned and signaled to someone in the crowd. 4 workers came forward, pushing a heavy cart. On the cart sat a boulder, a massive chunk of granite, roughly spherical, its surface rough and gray. It had been carefully selected, carefully weighed. 800 pounds. The workers strained to push the cart, but that was for show. They were being careful, not struggling. When the cart reached the platform, they locked the wheels and stepped back. Oran stared at the boulder. His optical implants calculated its mass, and he almost laughed. "This is your demonstration?" he asked. "A rock, what am I supposed to see?" Stepped forward. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms thick with muscle. He walked around the boulder once, studying it, finding the right grip. "General," he said quietly, "I want you to watch very carefully." And then he lifted it. With one hand. The boulder rose from the cart like it weighed nothing. Held it at shoulder height, perfectly balanced, his arm steady. There was no trembling, no strain, no effort. General Oran stopped breathing. This was impossible. This was absolutely impossible. No biological creature could lift that much weight. No one could hold that much mass so casually, so easily. His optical implants must be malfunctioning. The gravity readings must be wrong. There had to be some trick, some hidden machinery, some explanation. Tossed the boulder to his other hand. He caught it like a ball, like a toy, like it was nothing at all. And in that moment, General Oran understood that everything he believed about the universe was wrong. The silence in Central Park was absolute. Even the wind seemed to stop. General Oran stared at the boulder resting on shoulder. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among his people. His mind was trying to process what he was seeing, and it kept failing. The boulder weighed 800 pounds. He knew this because his optical implants had measured it. 800 pounds, a weight that would require a heavy industrial crane on his. A weight that his greatest warriors, his strongest soldiers, could never hope to move. And this human was holding it with one hand. "How?" Oran's voice came out as a whisper. "This is not possible." Looked at him calmly. "General, may I ask you something? What is the heaviest thing you have ever lifted?" Oran's mouth opened and closed. The question was almost incomprehensible to him. The heaviest thing he had ever lifted. He was a warrior, not a laborer. He had never needed to lift heavy things. That's what machines were for. Perhaps 40 of your pounds," he managed. 50 at most." Nodded. "That's about average for your species from what we understand. Your strongest athletes might manage 60 pounds. Your greatest heroes of legend, 70. He shifted the boulder again, moving it from one hand to the other. The crowd watched in silence, their faces calm, waiting. "This boulder weighs 800 pounds, continued. "It is not the heaviest thing I have lifted. It is not close to the heaviest thing I have lifted. On our world, there are humans who can lift over 1,000 pounds. Some have lifted more. Oran's legs were shaking now. He gripped the table in front of him to stay upright, but even that was becoming difficult. The weight of the stylus, the weight of his own arms, the weight of the terrible truth pressing down on him. "You cannot lift 40 pounds, said, his voice almost gentle. "You can barely keep you standing. Your soldiers are struggling just to remain conscious." He nodded toward the honor guard, and Oran looked. His warriors were in trouble. There were whining, warning lights blinking. 2 of them had gone to their knees, unable to fight the gravity any longer. One had removed his helmet and was gasping for air, his thin chest heaving. "Every human in this crowd," said, stepping forward, "can lift more than your entire honor guard combined. Every child in every school on this planet could defeat your mightiest champion in a contest of strength. We grew up carrying this gravity in our bones. It made us strong in ways you cannot imagine." Set the boulder down. It landed with a heavy thud that vibrated through the platform. Then he reached down and picked up a simple iron bar, perhaps an inch thick, the kind used in construction, and he bent it. He bent it into a circle with his bare hands, the metal squealing in protest. He dropped the twisted metal at Oran's feet. "You came to our world thinking we were weak," said. "You called us animals, livestock, beasts of burden. You looked at our muscles and thought we were built to serve." He took a step toward the general. Oran stumbled backward, nearly falling, saved only by his emergency stabilizers. "You had it backwards, General. You had it exactly, completely, utterly backwards." In the crowd, something was changing. The silent humans were beginning to move, not threatening, not aggressive, just moving. Some of them picked up stones from the ground and crushed them in their fists. Others lifted objects that should have been impossible for a single person to move. A young woman casually held a park bench over her head. An old man bent a metal railing like it was made of clay. The message was everywhere: we could end you, all of you, anytime we wanted. Oran's mind was racing. His fleet could bomb the planet, but what then? What would he tell the hegemony? That he had fled from primitives, that he had glassed a world rather than face its people. His career would be destroyed. His honor would be nothing. And besides, if even one of these humans reached his ships. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "First, I want you to understand something," said. She walked toward him, and he flinched at her approach. This small woman, who barely reached his chest, was suddenly the most terrifying creature he had ever encountered. "They have conquered dozens of worlds," she continued. "You've enslaved species across the galaxy, and all of them came from places with gravity like yours or weaker. All of them were small and light and fragile." She stopped in front of him. "But the universe is a big place, General. There are heavy worlds everywhere, planets with gravity like ours or even stronger. And on those planets there are species who grew up just like us, carrying mountains on their backs, building strength into every fiber of their bodies." "They would be savage," Oran said, "primitive like you." "Like us," agreed, "strong like us. And do you know what we could do, General? We could find them, we could reach out to them, we could share what we know." She leaned closer, and Oran's heart nearly stopped. "We could teach them what they're capable of." The implication hit him like a physical blow. If humanity contacted other high-gravity species, if they taught them that their strength was not a weakness, if they organized them, united them, the hegemony would face an uprising it could never survive. The enslaved worlds would realize they had been conquered by creatures who could barely stand up in real gravity. The entire empire would crumble. "You could destroy everything," Oran whispered. "We could," agreed, "but we don't want to." The general looked at him, confused and desperate. "Then what do you want?" Extended his hand, not in a fist, not as a threat, but open, offering. "We want peace," he said. "Real peace. An equal treaty between our peoples. You leave our solar system, you leave our species alone, and in return, in return, we don't start a revolution. We don't reach out to every heavy world in your empire. We don't teach your slaves that they're stronger than their masters. Step back. You have 1 hour to decide, General, and I suggest you use that time to think very carefully about what kind of galaxy you want to live in. Oran looked at the twisted metal at his feet. He looked at the boulder that a single human had lifted with one hand. He looked at the crowd of thousands, all of them watching him with calm, patient eyes. He had come to accept the surrender of primitives. Instead, he had learned what fear truly meant. General Oran collapsed before he reached his shuttle. The gravity had been too much. His had failed. His hearts, evolved for a world where they barely had to pump against any resistance, simply could not handle the strain. He fell face first onto the grass of Central Park, his armor sparking and smoking, and he did not get up. The humans could have let him die. They could have stood back and watched the great conqueror suffocate under the weight of their world. It would have been a fitting end to his threats, his arrogance, his contempt. Instead, walked over and picked him up. He carried the 9-foot alien like a child, cradling him in arms that could bend steel, and brought him to the medical team waiting at the edge of the field. Human doctors worked alongside the terrified officers, stabilizing the general, adjusting the pressure, keeping his alien hearts beating. "Why are you helping him?" one of the officers asked, his voice trembling. "He threatened to destroy you. He called you animals." The human doctor didn't look up from her work, because that's not who we are. They transported Oran to a specially prepared medical bay, a room with gravity reduced to half of Earth's normal pull, filled with equipment designed to keep him alive. When he finally opened his eyes, Ambassador was sitting beside his bed. "How do you feel?" she asked. Oran tried to sit up, then fell back against his pillows. Even in the reduced gravity, he was weak, weaker than he had ever been in his life. "I feel like I have been crushed," he admitted, "broken." "Your doctors say you'll recover. A few days of rest, and you'll be strong enough to return to your ship." He turned his head to look at her. This small woman, this creature he had dismissed as livestock, had just saved his life. Her people had every reason to kill him, and they had chosen mercy instead. "I do not understand you," he said. Smiled. "No, you don't. That's why you came here expecting slaves and instead found something else entirely." Oran was silent for a long moment. "The treaty," he said finally. "You mentioned terms. I am prepared to hear them." The negotiations took place over the next several days, while Oran recovered in his reduced gravity chamber. Human diplomats met with officers. Scientists exchanged data. Military leaders had careful, measured conversations about the future. The terms were simple. The fleet would withdraw from Earth's solar system immediately. No ship would enter human space without permission. There would be no tribute, no labor, no slavery. In return, humanity would keep its knowledge to itself. They would not contact other high-gravity species. They would not teach the hegemony's slaves about the truth of their own strength. They would not start the revolution that could burn the empire to ashes. It was not a perfect peace. It was not a lasting solution to the problems of an unjust galaxy, but it was a beginning. On the day the treaty was signed, General Oran stood on the observation deck of his flagship, looking down at the blue planet below. He was back in full gravity, ship's gravity, the gentle pull of his. His body had recovered. His pride had not. "General," his communications officer said, "we are ready to depart." Oran nodded, but he did not immediately give the order. He stood at the window, watching Earth turn slowly in the darkness. He said quietly, "When we return home, I want you to do something for me." "Anything, General?" "I want you to search our records, every world we have conquered, every species we have enslaved. I want to know how many of them came from planets with gravity like Earth's. Was quiet for a moment. General, I already checked. There are none. We have never encountered a high-gravity species before. That is what I thought. Oran turned away from the window. We have been conquering the galaxy for 10,000 years. We have brought 100 species under our rule, and in all that time we have only ever met the weak ones. He walked toward the command chair, his movements slow and thoughtful. We were lucky, incredibly, impossibly lucky. If we had found the humans first, if we had encountered them before we built our empire, they would have crushed us, finished quietly. Yes, Oran sat down. Give the order, take us home. The fleet began to move. One by one, the great crystalline ships turned away from Earth and accelerated toward the stars. Within an hour, they were gone, leaving only empty sky behind. On Earth, the celebrations were quiet. There were no parades, no speeches, no victory parties. People went back to their lives, went back to their work, went back to the ordinary business of living on a heavy world. But something had changed. Something fundamental had shifted in the way humanity saw itself. Stood on his balcony that night, watching the stars. His wife joined him, wrapping a blanket around his shoulders. "It's done," she said. "We're safe." For now, looked up at the sky, at the countless points of light that represented countless worlds. But there are other empires out there, other conquerors, other species who think strength comes from technology and ships and weapons. And when they come, smiled. It was the same smile he had worn in the park when he lifted the boulder, when he showed the galaxy what humans were made of. When they come, he said, we'll teach them the same lesson. Strength isn't just about machines. It isn't about how far you can shoot or how fast you can fly. Sometimes real strength is carved into your bones by a world that never stops pushing down on you. He clenched his fist, feeling the power that Earth had given him. They called us gravity slaves. They thought our heavy world made us weak, but we were never weak. We were never slaves. We were just waiting for the universe to figure out what we already knew. His wife leaned against him, and what's that? Looked at the stars, at the empire that had fled, at the galaxy full of species who had been taught to believe they were worthless, at the future that was suddenly wide open. That the strongest thing in the universe, he said, isn't the one that crushes everything beneath it. It's the one that can carry any weight and still choose to be gentle. Above them, the sky was quiet. The conquerors were gone, and somewhere out there in the vast darkness between stars, stories were already beginning to spread, whispered tales of a small blue world and the impossible creatures who lived there. The humans, the gravity walkers, the people who lifted mountains with their bare hands, and then offered those hands in peace. The galaxy would remember, and it would never underestimate them again.